historic day for Fernando Alonso, who crosses the line for his 5th Grand Prix victory of the season. He crawls across the line. It's the 6th win for him in only 59 Grand Prix starts. Yes, Fernando, you've won the Big 5 already, and this is only the 10th Grand Prix of the year.
Yes, Flavio Briatore holding up 5 fingers. Fernando Alonso does that after every win, although you do have to wonder what he'll do if he gets past 10. Good evening to you. Thanks for joining us as we count down to the British Grand Prix at midnight, one of the highlights of the Formula One season. We'll have a look at qualifying in a moment. Bob McMurray is with us. Bob, Silverstone, a special, historic stop in the championship.
It is, Jeff. It's special because most of the teams are based around there, and it's also historic. 1950, the first of the modern Grand Prix was held there, first of the season. Unfortunately, with historic comes ancient, and perhaps the facilities aren't quite as good as Silverstone as they should be, but they're trying to modernise it, but it's still an iconic Grand Prix. Great place.
And with the corners like Beckett's and Copse as well.
It's still a fast-flowing circuit, and this sort of circuit like Spa is what the cars were actually built for, and they do a lot of testing here so that they know this circuit pretty well. And it is a great circuit. It should never disappear from the calendar, ever.
The weather's often a factor at Silverstone. I know you've been in touch with some of the teams over there. What's the story?
Yes, I have. And remarkably, it's not really Silverstone. It's warm and sunny and quite pleasant.
This is Silverstone, England, you phoned, was it?
This is not the Silverstone we know. Usually raining, but no, it's actually a very pleasant day. No threat of rain, no threat of anything.
And when you look at the sort of circuit Silverstone is, McLaren expected to do well there, but...
Another but, just the same as last week. The engine let them down, except it wasn't really the engine this time. It was a scavenge pump, which takes the oil around the engine, that sort of thing, which failed, and Kimi had to change the engine. Therefore, he's back in 12th and not in 2nd, which is unfortunate. But Montoya's up there. He's doing pretty well as well.
Computer projections?
Jeff, I shouldn't really tell you this, but the computer projection is first Montoya, second Alonso, third Raikkonen.
Just trying to work out how a computer can possibly predict what Montoya's going to do. McLaren had dominated practice, but another engine failure for Kimi Raikkonen, as we've been discussing, forcing him down the grid. That happened last week at the French Grand Prix as well. However, for British fans, what that means is that there will be a local driver on the front row.
A big weekend for Jenson Button. There's a great deal of speculation about his future, whether he'll stay with BAR next season or be driving with either Ferrari or Williams. Button is in neither confirm nor deny mode. Certainly he's coming into good form. 4th place in France last week. Tonight he starts his home Grand Prix on the front row. McLaren's Kimi Raikkonen actually recorded the 2nd fastest time, but for the 2nd week in a row, he's been forced to drop 10 places because of a change of engine in practice. McLaren can hardly afford to give away such an advantage, especially as Fernando Alonso is well placed to take another step towards the World Championship after a week where he constantly talked down Renault's chances. Jenson Button too surprised at where he is.
We didn't quite expect it, so it's fantastic to be at the front. I think we can do some pretty good things from there.
It's not the ideal situation again, but it's nothing what I can do. I just can drive as quickly as I can, and then we see tomorrow what happens. But for sure, it's not the way to try to win the championship. If you take every time 10 places penalty, so we're not that quick in the end to give so much to the other guys.
The car this morning felt much better than yesterday. The team did an incredible job last night with some different changes we did, and the car fell straight away quite quick this morning. So I was P1 in the last session in P4. So I think we were in qualifying very confident, but probably not that confident to get the pole.
So Alonso on pole. You have to feel for Raikkonen. He's 24 points behind Alonso, but he's had a drive shaft failure at Imola, the suspension failure at the Nürburgring, no points at Indianapolis, of course, like Alonso, and the engine failure in practice in France last week. So, Bob, what's the feeling in the McLaren camp? Is it the way he's driving the car?
Well, I don't think it can be, Jeff, to be honest, because the scavenge pump is not affected by performance. It's just one of those things that breaks. So they've adjusted the strategy a little bit. He's carrying 10 kilos more fuel than Montoya, so that will give him another couple of laps probably. I understand that Button is quite light, they think, but Alonso is the one that you have to worry about up front.
What about Kimi and the way he's feeling? I mean, if you listen to him talk, it's impossible to tell whether he's happy or disappointed. It's just the same.
Yeah, I understand. I talked to Mark Arnold, his trainer. He's the guy, if you see standing near Kimi, there's a guy with bald head. Mark said that Kimi is not best pleased with this. He's getting a little annoyed and a little tetchy about it, which you've got to understand. You know, 10 places on 2 races, not good.
Perfectly understandable. We're now just into the second half of the championship tonight, round 11 of 19. Let's just run through the championship tables. Alonso has 69 points and pole tonight. But, Bob, it's interesting. Alonso has the Renault humming. His teammate Fisichella can't even make the top 8.
It's strange, isn't it? From Fisichella's really good start to the season in Australia, he's sort of faded away a little bit. And Alonso is just like a train at the moment. But you need this sort of thing to win the championship. Schumacher's there by dint, really, of Indianapolis, so you could really take him off a little bit.
Close enough, though, if Alonso or Raikkonen slip up.
Absolutely. I mean, but he is starting from 10th place tonight. He's obviously not quick. The car's not quick. Barrichello's in front of him. It's interesting.
Let's just have a look at the Constructors' Championship as well. Renault leading by 18 points from McLaren. Ferrari third. That total artificially inflated by what happened in America. Why do you think, Bob, Ferrari has lost its competitive advantage this year?
I think, Jeff, these things happen. Why did McLaren fall off the perch and Williams fall off the perch all those years ago? It's a combination of tyres. The car this year, interestingly, is not designed by Rory Byrne, the guy that's designed it in the last few years. It's designed by a guy called Aldo somebody or other. Can't remember his name. So Rory has tried to come in and help the car out a little bit. So perhaps it's that. All you need is one tiny thing to be different, and you're not performing as well.
Well, Aldo may not be back again next year the way it's going. When you think about Silverstone, and we were talking about this before, it's impossible to get away from the sense of history. It hosted the first Formula One race in 1950. Now, when you read about those days, or listen to Bob's stories about when he was there 55 years ago, it's like a different world. And so it is with driver safety. Safety and attitudes towards it have changed so much over the years.
Leather cap, short-sleeved shirt and goggles. The daredevils of past motor racing days. Tough as old leather. Proper protective measures for the drivers, not a trace. But severe injuries and fatal accidents led to the issue of safety moving further and further into the foreground over the course of racing history. Good for the drivers nowadays. Full head-to-toe protection. The helmet alone is by no means everything. A tight fit, body-hugging, supporting and mandatory for all the teams since 2003, the Head and Neck Support System, or HANS for short. HANS is an additional protection for the head and neck. It consists of a carbon fiber collar, which is connected to the safety belts and the helmet. In the case of an accident, especially a frontal collision, the system is intended to prevent over-twisting of the spine, overstretching of the neck muscles, and also an impact of the helmet on the steering wheel. To begin with, some drivers resist the protective neck support, but today the advantages have prevailed. Being prepared for anything, thanks to individual optimum protection, the basic requirement for a strong performance.
Safety, as always, the paramount issue in motorsport, although I do see the Hunts device does offer yet another sponsorship opportunity. Safety is where it all started at the Brickyard 3 weeks ago. Formula One doing its best to move on from that, but questions still remain over any punishment for the Michelin-equipped teams. We have to wait until September to find out what is going to happen there. Speaking of questions, let's get to the Ask Bobs for this week. Our first question comes from Brian Meiklejohn. The question, Bob, is what are the strips on the ground that the cars stop on when they come in for a pit stop? What do they do?
Well, Brian, it's quite a simple job, really. They just insulate the car, if you like, or at least take the earth or the possibility of any static electricity causing a fire in the car. So it's very much the same as a fuel tanker filling up at a gas station. They always earth the fuel tanker or the Bowser or something like that, and that's all they're doing in Formula One. That strip goes all the way back into the garage to an earth pole, and it simply means that there's no static electricity build-up that's going to cause a fire.
Still haven't got used to those pit stops where the cars come in and they don't change the tyres. Now, our second question comes from Richard Adams. Can you explain to me, please, how the points tables are worked out?
Yes, Richard, it's quite easy, really. The points systems have been changed much over the last few years. There were years where it was 9 points to win, only down to 6th place, where you had to give away your 2 worst results, that sort of thing. But this year, it goes down to 8th position, and it's 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for the top 8 finishes. The constructors table is both your cars finishing in the points. You get both the points. So if you've got a first and a second, you're getting 10 for your first driver and 8 for the second one. So the constructors is 18 points, and each driver gets individual points. That's as simple as it is, until they change it again, of course, and which could happen any moment.
And our third and final question comes from another Richard, and that question is, when the engines change from V10 to V8, how will that affect the weight requirements for the cars?
Well, Richard, obviously if you go to a smaller engine it should affect the weight, but in the FIA regulations that have just been announced for 2008, it says the weight of the car will be specified. In other words, they've left a hole there that they can lift the weight up or down. They want to change the basic weight of the car anyway, because they want to change the use of heavy ballast on the car, and heavy ballast is obviously something that's dangerous in an accident, so they want to actually change the weight anyway. But V10 to V8, obviously it will make a difference. Whether it makes a difference to the FIA or not is another matter, and I don't know what the minimum weight will be in that case.
All right, well, we'll have 3 more questions for Bob in the build-up to the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim in a fortnight. July's such a busy month, 4 races in 5 weeks. Also at Silverstone this evening, New Zealand driver Fabian Coulthard was the guest driver in the Porsche Super Cup race. I can tell you he came home 10th. Pretty tough to step into a series as a guest driver when everyone else has been hard at it all year. Right now, a chance for you to get into the grandstand for the Australian Grand Prix at the end of March next year.
Nescafe are giving you the chance to win a trip for 2 to the 2006 Melbourne Grand Prix. The prize includes airfares, 4 nights accommodation and spending money. Plus, every round you'll go in the draw to win an F1 Racing Magazine subscription. To enter, simply answer the following question. The 2003 British Grand Prix was interrupted because of a mad monk on the track, a horse on the track, a rainstorm, or a protest march on the track. Text your answer A, B, C or D to 3777 on your mobile. And for more chances to win, visit tvnz.co.nz. Keyword Ask Bob. Take the Nescafe Grand Prix Challenge.
The Australian Grand Prix, what a prize that is at the end of March next year. Now, we're counting down to the British Grand Prix, a race that 9 months ago hung in the balance because Silverstone's owners failed to meet Bernie Ecclestone's asking price to stage it. Fortunately, that was all sorted. Ecclestone once described Silverstone as a country fair masquerading as a world event. Well, let's get a sense of what it's like to go through corners like Beckett's and Copse.
In recent years, the Silverstone circuit has often been a topic of discussion, not because of its tradition, but because safety shortcomings meant that racing here was set to end. But the drivers think differently, as the race calendar would definitely be the poorer because England and the English have a very long motor racing tradition, and most of the teams are based in England. I'd therefore be against dropping the race.
Da wäre ich mal dagegen, dass der gestrichen wird.
The track's trickiest elements have always come from above. Typical British weather often means rain, with the otherwise good grip then lost and the asphalt getting very slippery. Another challenge presents itself in the fast corners, especially Beckett's.
Well, there's a big crosswind or headwind or tailwind. Any direction the wind is going affects the cars heavily through that section because it's very exposed. Like I said before, there's no real shelter. The wind can come through there and hit the cars quite hard, which the drivers feel a lot because we are at very high speed. We're doing you know, about 250, 240 kilometres an hour into the Beckett section, and it's very, very demanding to get the right balance, and when the wind is moving around it upsets us a little bit.
We defy all of the different winds around Beckett's, but have to stay alert. The car can have a tendency to understeer. It's flat out ahead with a quick look in the mirror to see how the competition are doing. We're going over 300 kilometers per hour, absolute top speed. Then it's into the next section with lots of feeling. Only with the perfect line will we achieve top performance. Overtaking is pretty difficult on this circuit due to a lack of slow corners at the end of long straights and a lot of fast corners where it's hard to keep close to the car in front. Now comes the last third. This slower section requires a lot of delicate footwork. We've got to give just the right amount of throttle and choose the perfect points to brake. Then we're in the stadium complex. The next two left-handers offer good chances to overtake, with the second of these rounded in second gear at just 80 kilometers per hour. Then it's the final spurt.
The last two corners are not that exciting, but good for the fans again, because the cars are a little bit slower and they get to see them, and sometimes we're locking a wheel up and sometimes we're trying a little bit hard. So that's when you get to see the big mixture of Silverstone, whether it's at Beckett's, it's very, very fast, and Copse the first few corners, and then the last part of the lap is slowing down, and you have to get, technically, that is important to get right.
The last two corners. Make good those tenths of a second and return to the start-finish straight.
While Webber and Heidfeld might talk fondly about Silverstone, it's not helped them in qualifying. Webber will start 11th, Heidfeld 14th. Such are the problems that Williams are having that Red Bull's David Coulthard has expressed concern that Webber will hold him up. So, Bob, what is going wrong at Williams?
I don't know, and it looks even worse, Jeff, because Heidfeld is using last year's car, effectively the 27, whereas Webber is in this year's car with extra aerodynamic packages on it to help it go. And look at the difference, is virtually nothing. It's 6-7 tenths of a second or something like that between them. No, it's only 2 tenths of a second. It's ridiculous. I don't know the real reason, but they've had a lot of trouble with aerodynamicists leaving and all sorts of things lately. There's a lot of unhappiness in the camp between BMW and Williams as well, political, and that sort of makes it uneasy, and the feeling in the camp is uneasy, and all sorts of things happen then.
Williams also involved in this gossip about Jenson Button possibly going to Williams, staying with BAR, possibly going to Ferrari.
Well, going to Ferrari as well, because if they have a change of engine, then Button can actually, usually it's written into contracts that you can get out of your deal straight away. Now, if Ferrari call him, although he'll be a year as second to Schumacher, I bet you he'd prefer to go to Ferrari than Williams at the moment.
Button not helping by refusing to confirm or deny.
No, but it's good publicity, isn't it? You would, wouldn't you? If Ferrari called, you're not going to tell them, everybody, they didn't, are you? Nah.
Well, while we're talking about Jenson Button, he has had the opportunity to try out the new Grand Prix circuit in Turkey. The Grand Prix race there on August 21. Now, these are his thoughts as he takes us around the latest Formula One racetrack.
This is going to be a very tough corner. Circuit's running away from me here. Going to get a lot of understeer, then a lot of oversteer when you get onto the power. Up through the gears through turn 2. Going to be full speed through here, pedal to the metal. Up the hill, over the crest into turn 3, which will be hard on the brakes while you're mid-air, probably, going over the brow. Comes up on you very quickly. Left-hand corner, second gear. Being careful not to run too wide, because you've got another second gear corner, which is a tight right, which runs down the hill. Runs down the hill into another tight left. Probably a little bit quicker than the last two, probably third gear. Dab on the brakes on the way through here, trying to balance the car. And then it's just gaining speed all the way to the exit here. You probably won't even get near the second apex of that double apex corner. Down the hill, hard on the brakes into a right-hander, which is cambered on the way in and a little bit off cambered on the exit, which is going to probably cause a little bit of oversteer. Again, very early apex. On the power, up the hill here over another crest. Well, this one's a bit more exciting after this crest. We go into a very, very long left-hander, which is pretty much going to be one big corner. Supposedly 3 apexes, but it'll be one big corner. So through the first apex, you're going to be very, very close to full power here. Just balancing the car throughout. Try not to get too much understeer or too much oversteer. Just trying to be to a sharp left-hander. Trying to get as smooth as exit as possible, because you go through this little corner here, which again, full speed. Gaining power all the way up here. Gaining speed. And then you're down into the supposedly Eau Rouge section, which is a fast right-hander. Going to be easy flat, I think. the car should be very, very stable through here. Over another brow, going to be reaching close to 200 miles an hour, probably over that, probably 205 on braking, into the slowest section on the circuit, which is the last 3 corners. Not the most exciting corners, but I know they have to put them in. A lot of overtaking into here. There's enough runoff if you make a mistake on braking, which is good. Equally slow right, which for me is quite pointless. And then you've got the last corner of the circuit, which is reasonably wide. Here we are, back on the main straight.
It does take a bit of imagination to see how it will be, and it's unusual to see a racetrack that runs anti-clockwise. Imola and Interlagos are the other two that run that way. Bob, your impressions of that racetrack?
Well, that's the first time I've seen it, Jeff, and I think I like the elevation changes. That's quite good. I'm not quite sure what they mean by the Eau Rouge corner. I guess just because you go right and go up the hill. But the elevation changes look good, and there look to be some very fast corners. But as Jensen said, it also looked a bit some fairly slow corners there as well. But you can't really tell with him driving a four-wheel drive around concrete trucks, can you? I guess it'll change a little bit.
What about any decent overtaking opportunities?
Well, there look to be at least 2 or 3 there on the faster corners, and then coming the heavy braking into the sharp left-hander that he was talking about there. That's a good opportunity, but I don't know. If it's a Herman Tilke circuit, he must have learned from all his other ones now. He's the guy that's done Malaysia and China and all those ones. So he knows where he's, I'm not saying gone wrong, but where maybe criticism was levelled at him, so he's probably corrected it in this. So I would hope that it would be a fairly good circuit for racing.
Strategy for tonight?
Oh, go quickly. 2 stops for McLaren and Williams, 3 probably for BAR. Schumacher, I've no idea.
All right, we're just about set to go. The British Grand Prix at Silverstone, round 11 of the championship. Fernando Alonso on pole and well placed to extend his championship lead. Let's join our commentators, James Allen and Martin Brundle.